Hi, I'm Dave Weller. I'm moderating tonight's Frankfurt Area Chamber of Commerce Forum. We've been doing this for nearly, I think, 28 years, I think is the count when I was figuring out earlier. So it doesn't mean we're good at it, it just means we are dedicated to helping voters understand who's running in the races and to give the candidates an opportunity to make their best case forward. So we're doing that again tonight. We're glad that both of you are here. Tonight's broadcast is about House District 56. We have two candidates, Lamar Allen and Daniel Pfister. I hope I pronounced those names correctly. If not, throw something or wave or yell or something. I do my best. So anyway, we are here. The Frankfurt Area Chamber of Commerce has some partners, the Frankfurt State Journal, Cap City Communications, the Frankfurt Plant Board, and Together Frankfurt all work together to create a comprehensive forum that you're attending tonight. This will be edited and will be shown on Cable 10 starting next week up into the election. My thanks to David Columbia and the folks at Cable 10 for making that happen. David pointed out Susie. You need to be able to see Susie. She's going to show a sign at 20 seconds left and then stop. When she shows stop, I'm going to try to gently get you to stop talking. If that doesn't work, you'll be muted. But I will only do that. We'll only do that as a last chance if we can't get you to respect the time. Otherwise, we can't get through this. Our panelists have done a lot of work preparing for you tonight with their questions. We have Steve Stewart from the Frankfurt State Journal, Kathy Lindsay from the Frankfurt Plant Board, and Kristen Cantrell from Cap City Communications. We appreciate so much the work that they have put into this. What we're going to do is we're going to have an opening statement. You'll have 1 minute each to say whatever it is to make the case for you and make sure the voters know who you are. And then we're going to have Q&A from the panelists. I'll recognize each panelist. They'll be able to ask you whatever question they think appropriate, and we'll direct it to which one of you they want to ask first. We'll try to make sure that that's flip-flop so that the same person not answering every question at the same time. Then we'll have a closing statement, 1 minute each, when you can make your final pitch for why people should vote you for a 56th district race for state representative on November 3rd or before. You can actually vote starting October 13th. So if there are no questions, when you do get to Q&A, by the way, you have 45 seconds. If there's a follow-up question, which is likely, you'll have 30 seconds. And again, watch Susie for the time cues. So let's get started. We're going to go in alphabetical order. Let's go at Lamar Allen. You have 1 minute to do an opening statement, sir. You may begin.
Thank you. First, thank you all for having me and having us here. It is opportunities like this that allows District 56 to be able to make a selection on who will be their next representative. So for that, I am forever grateful. My name is Lamar Allen. I am a teacher, have been a teacher for the last 11 years, and have been in various roles. I've worked with some of our most impoverished and disenfranchised children in the Commonwealth and families in the Commonwealth. I think it's time that we have regular, everyday Kentuckians representing us who have experiences, who have the empathy for other Kentuckians to want to do what's best for them, for their education and for their healthcare, and making sure that we are able to traverse through this pandemic. We need advocates for Kentuckians in Frankfurt who care about their health and their well-being. And that is one of the reasons why I stepped up in this race. So thank you again. Greatly appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you, Lamar. Dan Pfister, you have 1 minute for your opening statement, sir. Can you get yourself unmuted? There you go.
There we go. Hello, my name's Dan Pfister, and I'm a father, farmer, and a fighter. My wife, Vicki, and I have been married for 42 years. We have 2 grown sons and 2 grandchildren. I have lived, worked, and farmed in and around the 56th district my entire life. I know you, and I know the issues we face. If I'm honored enough to earn your vote, I am ready to go to Frankfurt and fight to fix our roads, lower our taxes, protect pensions, and invest in small businesses. I believe very strongly in putting people over politics, and my door will always be open to you.
Thank you. We're ready to go on a question and answer. Can we start, Kathy Lindsay, can we start with you and You ask the question and direct it to which candidate you would like to answer first, and then the second candidate will be given an opportunity. Thank you.
Sure. Well, we'll just start with Mr. Pfister. And my question is, our nation and our Commonwealth have become increasingly divided along party lines. How would you ensure that you will work for the good of the Commonwealth and not just for the good of your party?
My purpose for running is to make a better world for our children and my grandchildren. I've always worked with people regardless of where they come from, in my businesses and in my normal life. I just feel like I won't have a problem there. I'm willing to work with anybody that's willing to meet me halfway and work with me. So I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Lamar?
Yeah, I'm from, originally I was born in Flint, Michigan. I am some of those people who are often left out. But I have been privileged enough to get a quality education and be able to work with people on both sides of the aisle. I think we have to do more than just asking people to meet us halfway. As a teacher, I can tell you, we can't expect our students to meet us halfway. We have to meet students at their place, at where they are. So for me, I feel confident that I can do that. It's not because I think or I assume, it's because I'm willing to put in the work. I'm willing to put in the work to meet people where they are. And I have empathy and understanding of where they're coming from. So I'm all about picking people up.
Thank you, Lamar. Thank you, gentlemen. Do you have a follow-up question, Kathy?
No, I'm ready to move on. Thank you.
Okay. Kristen, you want to go?
Yes, I'll address this to Mr. Allen first. How important is public education to you? I'm sure as a teacher, it's very important. And what will you do to address the needs of our public school system, especially in a post-COVID-19 world? Our students and our families and our teachers are all stressed out and suffering, and we could go through this for quite some time. So if you could address the entire school system, kindergarten through post-secondary, when answering this question.
Yes. So as a teacher, I'm living this right now. What I would say is, one, we need to have pre-K, universal pre-K across Kentucky. I think we have an extreme burden on school systems because right now we're only paying for half of a school day for kindergartners. Likewise, we have a major issue, and we're seeing this right now with internet connection, internet services in our high poverty and in our rural areas. This makes education super difficult because they don't have access points. So as someone who's living this and who is seeing this, my job is to make sure that we increase funding in our public education system and make sure we keep our public education system a public education system, and we do not privatize it or lean towards charter schools or anything of that nature.
Thank you, Lamar.
Thank you. Mr. Pfister?
I don't disagree with most of what Mr. Allen just said. Education is the very most important thing we can give our children. That's their future. I think we need to build our classrooms or build our education system from the classroom out. I think we've gotten away from that some. We need to get back to that. And I do believe that we need to give our parents opportunities, because there's some children, it's one size fits all world just doesn't always work for kids. And we need to give the parents an opportunity to be able to work within the system to have a good education, a good fit for their children.
Thank you.
Yep.
Steve Stewart, you're up, sir.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
It's 2020, so we have to talk about COVID-19, right? Curious about your assessment of Governor Andy Beshear's handling of the pandemic in Kentucky. Tell us one thing that he got right and one thing that he got wrong in his handling of it. We'll start with you, Mr. Allen.
Yeah, so I think the governor's primary job is to make sure that all Kentuckians are safe. And I think he has done that. If I'm a teacher, so if I had to give them a grade for that, I would say it's an A. One area that I would have to say that I would have probably sided in a different direction would have been in terms of releasing some of the responsibility to the school districts. I think that puts a level of burden on superintendents, and they are going to be more likely to cave to issues within their community that are not directly related to science. So I wish he would have kept that responsibility in terms of creating those mandates to determine if schools are open or closed.
Thank you. Mr. Pfister, same question.
I would have to give the governor an A plus on how he got started. He was able to come in and shut the state down when things started to become commodities started to become scarce. Instead of having upheaval and riots and fear, he was able to keep that calm and control the situation very well. The one thing I think he did wrong, the KRS he's operating under was intended for storms and floods and that sort of thing, not something that's going on forever. And I think he needed to call in some help, consult the legislature, consult some other elected officials, and do it in more of a bipartisan group effort.
Quick follow-up, is there a single action you wish he had consulted the General Assembly on before taking it?
Oh, there's a lot. I think the General Assembly should have been consulted shortly after the shutdown. I think he got to be kind of arbitrary in some of his actions. And I think they should have been consulted and worked with and maybe streamline some of what went on.
Thank you.
Was that a follow for me as well?
Omar, go ahead.
That one was directed specifically at Mr.
Okay.
Pfister.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I'm good. Thank you. All yours, Dave.
You good, Steve? Okay. I think we're back to Kathy Lindsay. Kathy, you got the floor.
Okay. Some observers have indicated that state economic development programs provide incentives only for large corporations, while forgetting the needs of local farmers, small businesses, and self-employed individuals. What changes, if any, would you make to address economic development that does not rely on financial incentives for large corporations?
I'm not sure who that question was directed to, but could you repeat it one time for me?
Sure. Some observers have indicated that state economic development programs provide incentives only for large corporations while forgetting the needs of local farmers, small businesses, and self-employed individuals. What changes, if any, would you make to address economic development that does not rely on financial incentives for large corporations? And we can start with you. Go ahead. Yeah. Why not?
That works. I actually don't do the follow-up, so I figure I can answer it. I think that there has to be an opportunity for these small businesses to get in first. Period. We have farmers who are struggling. Period. We have landlords who are struggling. In fact, I'm getting messages from landlords who are absolutely struggling in this process, and they're not receiving anything from tenants. And as someone who used to be a landlord, I totally understand that struggle. We have to be able to allow those small businesses and the legitimate small business and our local farmers to get their hands on those funds first, and then let some of the larger corporations come in on the back end of that. But sometimes under my watch, the small people win first.
Thanks, Lamar. Dan?
I don't disagree with him at all on that. We need to design our programs to fit the small businessman. I've been a small businessman and a farmer my entire life. There's a lot of times I needed help and it wasn't there and it wasn't available, but it needs to be designed to help them. And that's what I will work to do.
Kathy, do you have a follow-up of any kind?
No, we can move on. Thank you.
Okay. Kristen, I believe it's your turn.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Pfister. And my question is, how important is passing gun legislation laws like stricter background checks and emergency risk protection orders to you?
I think we've got enough regulations on our guns. I think we need to deal with the people. I don't think we have a gun issue.
Okay, so may I ask a follow-up question? When you say deal with the people, can you define that for me, please?
Well, we've lost respect for each other and for ourselves in a lot of cases. We don't deal with mental illness the way we should. There's a lot of things these people are falling through the cracks. And that's where our issues are. There's not really any more guns per capita than there was 100 years ago or 50 years ago. But we're having issues, and it's people issues. It's not gun issues.
Thank you. Mr. Allen?
Yes. These are not just people issues. These are gun issues. I am a hunter. My father is a hunter. We come from a hunting family. My son will be a hunter. With that being said, there is no reason, and literally my opponent just described background checks. Literally, there is no reason to not have background checks for this very reason, because there are people who are going to cause issues with guns, and we have to get guns out of their hands. So we should eliminate loops. We should make sure that individuals who have a violent background history and things of that nature can't get their hands on guns. So I believe we have a gun issue in Kentucky, and no one's taking your guns away, right? Responsible gun owners are safe and will always be able to maintain their guns.
Thank you, Lamar.
Those background checks are already in place.
Yes, there are background checks, but I was referring to stricter background checks. And if so, perhaps perhaps I should ask the follow-up question of what does a stricter background check look like to you, to either one of you?
I'll answer this. So not only should we look at individuals who have had a violent background history, but we're talking about mental health issues. Unfortunately, we have a lot of individuals who have mental health issues that have not been identified. We have individuals who have mental health issues that they are teetering on the cusp, whether that is just depression or whatnot. Right now, there is no background check that is going to stop an individual who is depressed and is in a lonely spot from doing something harmful that they did not intend to do, but their disease has pushed them to do.
Mr. Pfister, would you like to respond?
Well, just from the situation he just described, there's no background check that's going to be able to stop that. If I'm depressed and want to go buy a gun to hurt myself or somebody else, if I've got a smile on my face, how's anybody going to know any different? There's no background check that we can do that will discover that person. We're already looking at criminal history and mental health issues and all that stuff in our current background checks. Let's work with our people and get them to go get the help they need when they feel depressed or they're having issues. That's where we need to work.
Okay.
I disagree with that because I disagree with that completely. Because if that was the case, we wouldn't not be able to identify these people as being depressed or whatever it may be. So I completely disagree with that. I wish we had people running for office who would fight for people as much as they would fight for guns. And I think that's the problem we have here. We have individuals who put more stake in being a gun owner than getting a quality education or healthcare. And that is, I think, the crux of the issues that we have here is that we value gun ownership more than we value individuals in terms of make sure they have great healthcare, make sure they have great education experiences. making sure Kentuckians
Thank
are
you,
safe
Lou.
from COVID.
We need to wrap up. Do you want,
Thank you.
okay, we good?
Yep, I'm good.
Steve Stewart, you're up.
Thanks, Dave. I'm sure you both have closely followed the Breonna Taylor case and tragedy in Louisville. What lessons should be learned from that tragedy? And specifically, should any legislation be considered and passed in response to that tragedy? Start with Mr. Allen.
I believe Breonna's law should definitely be passed. We should end no-knock warrants. I believe that we should know what was the process, and we should have recordings of the attempts to get warrants with judges. Everything in our judicial system is recorded except for the act of actually receiving the warrant and what was talked about or discussed in that process. We're all about transparency here. And I will tell you, I come from a family of law enforcement. My brother's a law enforcement in Louisville. My uncle's in law enforcement in Flint. My cousins are in law enforcement. This is an issue where we have limited accountability, and we also don't have enough officers who live in the communities that are most over policed. So those would be some of the takeaways from this process.
Quick question on transparent follow-up, a little more on transparency. Should the shield or protection on grand jury proceedings be lifted? Many calls to make that more transparent.
I would actually say yes to that. I would, and I think that the glaring issue, I think you see this here, where you have an individual who wants to come out and talk about their experiences or what was presented, and they're not able to do that. So we may not be able to uncloth every grand jury, but I think it should be easy for individuals to be able to step out into the light if they so choose.
Mr. Pfister, lessons learned from the Breonna Taylor tragedy, and specifically any legislation needed as a result of that tragedy.
I think, it's a tragedy what happened. There's no doubt about that. But I think we need to find out exactly what went on. We still don't know that. We've been through part of the process. We've got people crying for verdicts and different things, and we need to just settle down a minute and find out what's going on. Then we can address the issues.
Quick follow-up, your position on the bill actually supported by the Senate Majority Leader to ban no-knock warrants. I believe Mr. Allen referred to it as Breonna's law. Your position on that bill?
Is that to me?
Yes.
I fully support it. There's very few, I'm a former law enforcement officer myself. There's very few reasons that you don't need to knock on the door first. And I support Senator Stivers and his bill.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One Dave.
Okay. Got 8 minutes. Does someone have a Kathy, Kristen, next best question? Let's get one more in. Who's got the best question?
Oh, it's hard to
Who
say.
wants to ask this question? Who wants to ask this question?
I can tell you it's Kathy.
Oh gosh.
Kathy,
Well-
Kathy, you got it.
Okay, two-part question.
That was slick, Chris.
And that will be short. The state constitutional officers, they're subject to term limits. Do you think that's something that members of the General Assembly should be subject to? Should they have term limits? And then what do you think is the most important issue facing the Kentucky General Assembly right now?
I'll go. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, one, yes, I think we should have term limits. Two, I think it's hard to advocate for term limits when you still are able to redistrict in the way and gerrymander in the way that has historically been done on both sides, right? I think that they go together. I think that you should have independent firms doing redistricting. And I think with that, or in conjunction with that, you should also have term limits. There's no reason why we have career politicians.
And what
Dan?
do you think is the most important issue facing the General Assembly right now?
The pandemic. I mean, the pandemic is going to create, I mean, it has created a financial storm for the Commonwealth. We're going to have to seriously seek additional revenue sources. We're going to have to work a lot more efficient and smarter. But we also need to make sure that we come out of this stronger than we went into it. And we do that by strengthening public education, making sure we have access to affordable health care.
Thank you. Mr. Pfister, term limits?
Can you repeat your question? I had some audio issues when you were asking it. Sure.
Yeah. Do you, would you support term limits for members of the General Assembly? And what do you think is the most important issue that they're facing right now?
Okay. I wished we didn't have to have term limits, but yes, I do support them. We typically have people that just stay too long and the voters aren't necessarily willing to vote them out. So yes, we do need term limits. I think our economy is the number one issue facing us. We went from the lowest unemployment in recorded history to number one in the nation. We're recently ranked at number 4 in the nation for bankruptcies. We've got to get this economy back together, or there's not going to be anything for the healthy people to live with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we good? Okay, let's go ahead and move to the close then. We're going to have a closing statement, 1 minute each. We'll do in reverse order the opening statements, and then we'll close the session tonight. So we'll start with Dan Pfister. Dan, you have 1 minute for a closing statement. You may begin.
I want to thank the Franklin County Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event and for you all. And I want to thank everybody that is going to watch this in the future here for joining us as well. As someone who has been endorsed by the Kentucky Chamber, I feel privileged to have been able to speak to you all tonight. On election day, I ask that you remember one thing, and that's that I'm the only candidate in this race that has the vast majority of his support coming from within the 56th district, and who will be able to fight for you on day one to save your jobs on Main Street and to get our economy going back again. With my business background and as a member of the majority party, I'll be in a position where I can exercise my experience and craft legislation to help you and the many small businesses that are struggling during this shutdown. I ask for your vote on November the 3rd, and please follow up by visiting my website at danpfister.com.
Thank you, Mr. Pfister. Lamar Allen, you have 1 minute, sir. Begin.
Yes, thank you to the Frankfort Plant Board, the Frankfort Chamber, Franklin County Chamber. I tell you that this is an absolute privilege. I don't get many opportunities to go back and forth and trade ideas with my opponent. So I do appreciate this opportunity to be able to talk to the 56th district. What I would say as a father of a 4-year-old, as someone who comes from a disenfranchised community, and as someone who honestly is not a career politician, but also not a repeated runner. I'm not just running for power. I'm running to make a difference. And I think that matters. And I think your heart matters in this. And I think fighting for children, making sure that we strengthen our public education, making sure we have affordable health care, making sure people who live in my very household who are immunocompromised have options in Kentucky. I think that's what matters. I ask for your vote on November 3rd. And please check out more about me and my campaign at lamarfortky.com. Thank you all, and I greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you. You've been watching the Frankfort Area Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum for House District 56. We're so happy that all of you took the time to be with us. I want to thank the candidates, Lamar Allen, Dan Pfister. Good luck to both of you gentlemen in the upcoming general election, which is on November 3rd, or you can actually vote as early as October 13th. thanks to cooperation between the Secretary of State and the Governor of the state. I want to thank our terrific panelists who have done an incredible job preparing and asking terrific questions. They are Steve Stewart from the Frankfort State Journal, Kathy Lindsay from the Frankfort Plant Board, and Kristen Cantrell from Cap City Communications. Their three companies, along with the Chamber, the State Journal, Frankfort Plant Board, Cap City Communications, along with Together Frankfort, have sponsored this tonight. They work together cooperatively to work together in arranging it, doing the questions, providing the opportunity. For Cable 10 will edit this video and they'll keep everything you've asked. The answer, don't worry about that. But they will edit it to make it more viewable. They'll put it online and on the Cable 10 network. It'll start showing next week, I understand, through the election. So my thanks to everybody involved. Susie Hosley has been taking the time tonight. Susie's terrific. She has been with the Chamber a long time. She's the incoming interim president, upcoming as Carmen retires. So we're excited for her. David Columbia, who's been with us operating the Zoom network and also will help provide the editing. So we're thankful to everybody for being involved. I would encourage you to go vote, take an opportunity to learn from the gentlemen who have presented their ideas tonight, and go vote your best conscience on November 3rd. Thank you. Good night and good luck to both of you.